Now when you come, let's say the Ukraine war takes place, the people who came in may have been jihadis, but there is a very good set of military minds behind it who have trained them, organized them, told them how to come inside.
When I was reading your book, especially, there was minute details given about Kashmir, like the Khusro, the path he took to reach Pakistan, or the jihadis, the path, the hills, or the passages what were narrated in the book.
The Pakistan's ISI, or the Inter Services Intelligence, it was actually groomed by the CIA during that period 79 to 89 when they had to fight the Russians. So they were made, they were literally trained and brought up by the CIA to be at par with the best in the world. Today when you talk about the top intelligence agencies in the world, you'll talk about CIA, Mossad, and after that is possibly, ISI. They become that good. So they've learned the tricks of the trade, and the thing is, of course, their area of operations is, basically West Asia and South Asia.
Don't you feel laughing when you see movies like Pathan, Jawan, Devta Tiger?
I know.
Sorry to interrupting, and suddenly a different question, because the way you are explaining me, such so minute details and how things happen, I just went into thought of thinking that what they actually show in those movies. So hi guys, and welcome to the show of Books and Theories podcast, और जहाँ हम लेके आते हैं different podcasts with different authors, have written multiple books. और इस हफ्ते जो मैंने बुक पढ़ी है, one of the best book I have read in many days, I'll say. आपने फैमिली मैन देखी है, मनोज बाजपेयी वाली. This book will give you that feel, and along with that will give you a feel of Pushpa. So the book का name है Among Us the Believers, written by Kochri Simu. Hope I'm correct.
Yeah, sure you are.
Pronouncing the name correct. So we have Kochri here with us in our show. जिस जब हम बात करने वाले हैं डिटेल में इस बुक के बारे में, तो दोस्तों प्लीज इस पॉडकास्ट को मिस मत करना. इतना थ्रिलिंग पॉडकास्ट ना, यू वुड हैव नॉट heard anywhere else. It's a complete thrilling sort of podcast which you are going to hear it today. So welcome Kochri to our show of Books and Theories podcast, where we discuss about books, stories, and lot more things. So welcome to our show, and I would request that if you can introduce yourself to my audience so that they should know who you are actually.
Oh, thank you, Himanshu. Thank you, and thanking all the readers and the listeners out there. And it's a great privilege to be with you, Himanshu. It's a great privilege. For those of you who do not know me, I am a retired defense officer. My previous life, as I call it, I used to be commanding warships in the Indian Navy. And at some point when I decided to leave the Navy, I shifted track. Then I was working in hydroelectric projects. But I've been stemming the building of hydroelectric projects in the Kaveri Basin in Karnataka, Bias Basin in Himachal, Teesta River Basin in Sikkim. So I have had a vast experience of dabbling in the hydroelectric sector. And I shifted tack, and after that, and now I am presently involved in setting up of a shipping company for the last few years. I had a job which has taken me traveling to various parts of the world in connection with the work. I wrote my first book, Men and Dreams, in the Dhauladar whilst I was in Himachal. Way back, so about 10 years back, that book was published. And this book, Amongst the Believers, is a kind of sequel to that first book. And I had written a second book, again a crime thriller called Faith and the Beloved, which was published in 2020. And this book, Amongst the Believers, has been published this year. It's the latest edition. And as Himanshu rightly said, yes, it does cover a vast spectrum, and in addition to all this, writing books is my passion, my hobby. I do so many other things. I'm still, as the saying say, you need to work for a living, which I still do. And I have dabbled in various things, dabbled in various spheres in life. And as the saying goes, there is nothing more that shows in a writer's writing than his experience and exposure to life. And that's what I try to bring to life in this book. Experience tempered with a perception and a perspective which sometimes will make you sit down and think. That's the whole effort of this book. So I think that should be about.
First of all, I would like to.
And for the people who do not know.
Frankly telling you, because we have been speaking over phone only till now. I have not seen you personally. And unfortunately, we are doing this podcast online, so I could not meet you also. So I was having an image listening to your voice that you are somewhere around 24, 25. So that's the reason I was calling you with your name. I should call you sir because I always respect defense people. And I really, I cannot tell you, I cannot express actually how much I feel proud when I talk to any of the defense people. So my apologies that I was calling you through my through your name, first name, because I have not seen you till now. And really, you feel very young by your voice.
No, thank you, Himanshu. But as an author, one of the things that I did not even use my title and rank when I started writing, because I found that it kind of becomes a handicap when you're writing pure fiction, which is not related to military stuff. But yes, that's a different life. Which is the world, it's another life. And I agree with you. That's a world which is very different very different from the rest of the country. It's very different.
True, sir. So the first question comes to my mind. First of all, book is beautiful book. There are very few books which keeps you in that grip of its story. And this is that book. So while I was reading first chapter, frankly telling you, I was imagining Pushpa because it was completely about South, Kerala and all those stuff. So I was feeling like I was watching some South movie. उसमें एक सीन भी बड़ा अच्छा है when he उस जीप के साथ जब वो चेस होता है then he kicks and पूरा scene है. It gives you goosebumps that you feel like it's बिल्कुल पुष्पा टाइप की एंट्री हो रही है. And then the story shifts to Khusro and then the Kashmir part. That gives you a different angle. And the doctor in between. So all those things are so beautifully staged that you cannot keep your book down. You need to keep on reading to understand how all these 3-4 people are stitched together. And that's actually kept me engaging in that story. I was totally engaged. I wished I could have paperback of that. I was having Kindle, so I was reading over Kindle, but I really love paperback. So, but your book kept me engaged throughout, and I think it's a must read for everyone. People who love watching thriller movies, thriller web series. I hope this book should become a web series someday. It's so engaging. So the first question comes to you, like, what inspired you to write this sort of story? And it's a quite complicated story because not only talk about India, Pakistan, but it talks about jihadis, it talks about Naxalites, it talks about lot many things and all very beautifully staged.
Yes, you have asked a very question as to, that's a very famous saying is, then why do people climb mountains? An old adage where people say, yeah, because it's there. So that's one way of looking at it. But I will go a little back first to say that, the passion for writing goes a long way back. It goes back to my school days, way back. I studied in a school called Loyola School in Trivandrum. So that was a place where it kind of kindled that, what you call a passion for writing. And, we had a whole lot of people who were into this kind of creative stuff. Subsequently, I was fortunate to go to the place called Delhi College in Indore, again another fantastic institution which groomed you, till I joined the National Defense Academy. Uh-huh. National Defense Academy, and then your complete military mind, you're not thinking civil anymore, you're only looking at how to kill more people more effectively, and it's a different world altogether. So there, I tried writing fiction whilst I was in service. You just couldn't go beyond a few pages, Your mind goes back into matters military and you're plotting and hatching and, working out. There's so much of, the reading and understanding, because what a lot of people don't understand is, in warfare, people say, that battles are fought and won in the minds of people. Now, if you take a cricket match, you play this year IPL, next year IPL, every year you keep playing, so you have a way of knowing what your strengths are, what your demerits are, how the other team, and you know the whole fair idea about what's happening. But in the case of warfare, you cannot take a nation to war so that a soldier gets he knows how to fight. That can never be. So warfare is a very serious business. So you add 165, you add 171, then you had Kargil in 99, then maybe your latest one, that is your 2014 one. So the distances are quite a bit, between one serious conflict to another serious conflict. And now when you come, let's say the Ukraine war takes place, or when there is the jihadi operation going on, everywhere, finally it's a military mind which is behind. Because I will say this openly, because if you see that the way the 9/11 attack took place, the people who came in may have been jihadis, but there is a very good set of military minds behind it, who have trained them, organized them, told them how to come inside, and how to fight that attack, and then controlling it even using our own media. Initially, our media also didn't realize that they were kind of feeding the controller sitting in Karachi. So this, unfortunate as it may be, because the subcontinent, Afghanistan, West Asia, so the jihadis is a problem, and that's a reality which the world has to live with. Ever since the Russian invasion of Afghanistan in 79 to 89, the Americans mobilized the jihadis from all over the world and told them that it's a good cause to fight the Russians. So they defeated Russians, and they said, if we can defeat Russia, the biggest power in the world, we'll knock off India. They tried, then it's a different game. It's a different thing when you're fighting your own motherland or your own homeland against fighting somewhere else. And over a period of time now, you see that even though I've left the defense forces, you keep track. Whenever you see things happening, you know what is going to happen. That Ukraine war was engineered, and you could see it from a distance. But the people who are playing the game in that close to it, they could not prevent it from happening. So one of the efforts in this book has been to give a phenomenal amount of historical content. And a lot of the times, as you say, that what you see is not what is scripted. And unless you know what is being scripted, you will never understand the game. So one effort in the book has been to kind of decipher the script and give a version to the reader to cut through the clutter and see complicated scenarios and what happens behind, and what happens to people who are caught, how the intelligence agencies function, how the political might functions, and the underworld gets involved. So the effort has been truly to take the reader through what goes behind the scenes in all this, the conflict zones and in the things that are going wrong in and around us. And I say in and around us because Afghanistan, Pakistan, it's kind of the hotbed is very, very close to us, and we have been, victims for a bit, suffered quite a bit in this part of it. Second is a little stranger that you may see that, warfare is a warfare. A man who's fighting for an army is on the right side of the law, fighting for the right cause. A jihadi or a terrorist is on the wrong side of the law for the wrong cause. But finally, both of them are staking their life. And there is a certain amount of commonality, there is a certain amount of things that people understand. If you have been in that line of, in that line, anyone who worked in the defense, that as much as a soldier who fights for his cause, fights for his nation, and he does whatever he's supposed to do, equally, the mental makeup of a man is human. So there is always a human element to beat a jihadi, beat a soldier, beat any kind of thing. There is always a human element when a human being is involved. So the other aspect was to bring out some of those human aspects which will make it questionable that, there is no such thing as clear black and white when you come into this kind of environment, which is also, you will see, many of the characters are always with shades of grey. So the effort has been to tell, to kind of say a contemporary story with quite a bit of perception on history and understanding of history and many versions. And you should know, like they say, reading Mahabharata is one thing, but you should know if somebody is putting a shikanti in front of you, because if you don't, you're going to get knocked out. It's something like that. I mean, you have to use a parallel which our people understand. So it's like that.
So one question comes in my mind when I was reading your book, especially, there was minute details given about Kashmir, like the Khusro, the path he took to reach Pakistan, or the jihadis, the path, the hills, or the passages what were narrated in the book. While I was reading, it was quite obvious that someone has written a book who is well researched about it, or it's someone who has actually gone through those paths and hills. So that was the feel I was getting, because it was so minutely described each name, location, and places. So you researched about it, or you have been to those places because you have been into the defense?
No, one part is I have trekked extensively in Kashmir before all this chaos started. When Kashmir was still peaceful, I've trekked in Kashmir extensively. In all these areas, I've trekked. So one is, I do have a first-hand knowledge of the terrain in that area. That's one part. Second, of course, there is a lot of research because as each events take place, a lot of them get reported. And, if you see, the material which I have used is what is available in the open source. Or some of it is fictional, which unless you're really very deep into it, they will not know where the fictional one is and where the real one is not.
You actually mixed real and...
Yes, because that's required. That is required because you would not like to. That's why I said no. You will only use information what's available in the open domain. That's one. This book also I've stuck to that. That's one thing about. You have to be careful. This kind of issues when you write. You have to write only what is there in the open domain. So, and that has been the effort. And second is, unless, it may not be the right way, but it's something like this. In any crime situation, one of the ways of doing it is to say, if you are capable enough, you see how a crime has happened that you do not know who has done it or how it is done. One of the ways of approaching for solving it is to say, how would you do it if you were to do it? This is often used in warfare. We call it appreciating the situation. To say that, it's like this, there is a saying, in Mahabharata, say that if Kijak was killed, then Bhim must have been there. Correct? Because nobody else could have killed Kijak, only Bhim could have done it. So, if Kijak was killed, definitely Bhim was there, physically present. Now, this is a conclusion which you draw. So, like that, in any situation when you're writing a story, you must have the ability, even if you do not know the solution, you do not know who has done it or why it was done, but you have to say, all right, this has been a job given to me, how will I do it? And when you put your mind through it, a lot of things come through, and then you'll see a lot of detailing is required. That's how you put together a story. And when someone reads it, you will not know whether it is this person who has given his way of doing things or it is someone who has actually done it, which may be a little different. The truth is not, this is not a book about the truth. But then, a lot of it will be very close to the truth. Let me put it that.
So one more thing, the way Nanda is being presented as an agent and the way he reaches Pakistan, the complete modus operandi, what was planned, how his company was established, how everything was set up for him. So all those things were very, very detailed and very nicely explained. But one question always comes to my mind when I obviously see some web series also like this, where Indian RAW agents are setting up all those things for their agents and placing on everything. You being in defense, is these things are just fictional, or really such type of things happen?
No. Please remember that espionage and spies have been all through the history, and they're part and parcel of warfare. They'll always be there. And what happens is, like there's a saying in any military, they say, forewarned is forearmed. So in peacetime, that's what I told you. See, you cannot keep fighting a war to, prove yourself that you're as good as a neighbor or better than your neighbor or better than Russia, Pakistan or America, whomsoever you want to prove it. That cannot be done. But what you do is to have an intelligent and clear estimate of how that your neighbor, your enemy, or enemy's friend, or enemy's enemy, depending on the level to which you go. So you have to have a clear picture on how the narrative is being scripted in the various parts of the world which are of interest to you. So therefore, intelligence agencies, form a phenomenally key important part, because if your intelligence fails, it can be very disastrous for you. I mean, see, when people say, like in Hindi movies and all, they say this, Are Manguram, kya khabar laaye ho? But then, that is a very, very casual way of putting it. But then, that is the gist of the whole thing. Because you have to have a pulse on what your enemy is up to. So it's something like, I'll give a simpler example which you can correlate. If you're working in a factory and you keep having complaints, people coming about khana theek nahi hai, sir, overtime nahi diya, ye nahi hua, wo nahi hua, and you keep getting complaints every 2-3 days. But then suddenly you find that there are no complaints and everyone is keeping quiet. Then there's a big storm brewing, because that's the first indication. When all your workers are keeping quiet, means something really big is going to happen. So,
Yes.
correct. So it's something like this. So, for example, now let's say if I were to talk about that, these so many operations. So, the intelligence forms a very, very key part. It's an extremely important part in peacetime. In wartime, in any case, you will actively go and do what you have to do.
Sorry to interrupting you. As on date, from last few months, we are seeing that Kashmir is very peaceful. So, something brewing, it's quite possible something may be brewing up.
There is always a danger. No, it is not that. See, what has happened is during election time, and that they, in 2014, when they did that attack was to trouble the government, to pull down the government. But it completely had the opposite effect. It gave the opportunity for the government to act. The military acted. It was successful. Then suddenly the whole nation rallied behind the current government. Now, possibly that government would not have got a mandate in 2019. No way. So this time, so they're very careful that that things have to remain peaceful. That issues have to remain on what you call that, your Mengai and Naukari and all that kind of stuff, and not on your threat from your neighbor. But then it's very easy to divert a nation, and the nation will rally behind the government. So that they know that they're keeping quiet till the government settles down, and then they will start. And
even what I can judge from the news, what I see or read, that even Pakistan's condition is not so good now financially. They are just broken. So maybe that is also the reason that now they are not able to sustain such type of missions or threats what they were trying to do it before.
It is not that. See, so I actually try to explain some of that in the book. Actually, see, what happens is the Pakistan's ISI, or the Inter-Services Intelligence, it was actually groomed by the CIA during that period 79 to 89 when they had to fight the Russians. So they were made. I mean, they were literally trained and brought up by the CIA to be at par with the best in the world. Today, when you talk about the top intelligence agencies in the world, you'll talk about CIA, Mossad, and after that is possibly, ISI. They become that good. So they've learned the tricks of the trade. And the thing is, of course, their area of operations is, basically West Asia and South Asia. They don't go, sometimes a little bit there in Southeast Asia also, but they're not very strong in Europe and other areas. But in this area, they're very good. And the thing is, they have a system wherein they control the drug empire. So I've written quite a bit about that in this book, and how the thing works and how the slush money is used. And if you have, let's say, $1 billion to today, you don't need intelligence agency. You give to some of our third-rate politicians, they will do a better job. You say where to set fire, they'll give them $1 billion. They'll set fire anywhere in the world.
I think so.
So if you have an agency with considerable amount of money, that place. So it's not a nation, it's this agency, and once you have money, you get mercenaries. Like the people who come in for that, a lot of the mercenaries who come in for that are purely in money. You go and carry out what attack and come back. You get so much money. So that once the money is taken out of the system, which is what our the current government has succeeded in, that jihadism cannot serve. It is once it is sponsored by money, you pull the money out, then that goes out. So that's a thing which you have to understand, that because the terror funding is a very serious issue. So many people use it to their convenience, to the extent that people say that saying in Pakistan, they say the ISI is they say it's runs with the hounds, or hunts with the hounds and runs with the hare.
Okay.
So they're on both sides. So you hunt with the hounds and you run with the hare. So that's one of the things I try to highlight. So there are a lot of the things which when you get into this, as much as there are political compulsions which you get to see in our in a country, Similarly, intelligence also has got its own compulsions. There is nothing black and white. So yes, a lot of the things that which happen, trade-offs, money payoffs, it's a lot of the time, like for example, when you read about the Bombay underworld, a lot of times you say, two gangs are fighting and there is a shootout, somebody is killed. They say, okay, we'll settle it, but provided you allow us to knock off that fellow.
Oh.
So then they say, okay, all right. So then they snitch on one guy, and when he's going somewhere, that the enemy comes and knocks him off, and then there is a balance which is set up. So this world is like that. The idea has been to bring out some aspects of the world and how those things work to the reader. And to the discerning reader, there is phenomenal amount of information. But of course, whatever information I've used is in the open source. How I've interpreted it, of course, is where the writer's skill comes. That's how it works.
Actually, when I listen to these stories of ISI, RAW, agents and everything, it feels like one is the open source internet, another the dark web. So this agents, spies, they all stay in some dark web area. So the stories are totally hidden to everyone. But they're very fascinating and very interesting to listen to. I'm very lucky. In my podcast, you're the third one from defense who is on my show. And I feel very proud for that. So, Pulpreet Yadav came to my show. He's also from Navy, ex-Navy defense. Then last month I shot with Colonel Ashutosh Kale. He was Kargil War veteran, and now I'm talking to you. So I'm really honored and feeling proud to have you all on my show. It's a pleasure to talk to you. This is so insightful.
Thank you, Himanshu. But then, like I say, that matters defense, stay with the defense. So this is not defense, this is a novel writing.
This is writing. But still, sir, I really feel proud when I talk to a defense people. That's the reason I want to express it.
No, thank you. Thank you so much.
I'm coming back to your book. So you have mentioned about Indian agents, you have mentioned about Pakistani agents, you have mentioned about jihadis, you have mentioned about Naxalites. So there were all sort of angles from both the countries' side. So how you balance that and how you manage to show both sides of the story in a positive way and in a way that should actually keep
yes, that was an interesting part. I will relate it to what we used to call, when you used to be in our defense days, we used to do something called wargaming. In wargaming, what you do is, you decide to say two warring sides. All that it could be, you would say India and maybe America on the other side, India, maybe Pakistan, India, China, India, Russia, India, Japan, any country, just to push two sides. So we will give a team of officers on one side. We will do research and compile all the information about capabilities of that nation. You put that into, formulate that, and you list out your capabilities, which is subsequently programmed. And similarly, the other side. Now, there is an umpire who knows about capabilities of the both sides or the team of umpires, but the fighting sides really are not given full information about what the capabilities of other side are, excepting what's available in the chain or open information, what are given to you. So then you're a lot of the time you're sitting and you huddle together and saying that okay, your force has moved this side, so many hours have passed, we got one signal here, one signal. Then you're trying to interpret a picture. So you know that whilst you're doing this, there is always a maneuver, and you know that when you do a maneuver, there will be a counter maneuver will come from the other side. It always comes. So it is that kind of thinking. The difference here is there were two teams, maybe 15-20 officers on one side, 15-20 officers on the other side. Here you're an author, you're single-handed, you have to be Nanda, you have to be Khusro, you have to be the villain, the heroine, everyone. You're there everywhere. No, it's your mind. So then it does become quite a bit because getting into the shoes of the character takes quite a bit of time. So you define a character, and then you are done research, and then you define this is how he or she is going to be. Then you and allow a certain amount of changes which will happen to her as a story moves forward. And you have to stay in that frame of mind while you're writing about that character. So it takes you maybe about, you have done research and picked up a character, 2-3 months you have researched and okay, you think you got it, then you start writing. So you're in that with that character maybe for a few weeks till you finish that one chapter. Then you come back to another chapter. So what happens is that, you're, like you said, the whole story is spread over time and space in a very vast canvas. So then you have a kind of what I used to call a white marker board where you keep track of who's where in the initial stages. And at some stage of the novel, suddenly the whole thing starts playing out in your mind. And that is required. Then only you are able to get your writing and steer it the way you want. So the story starts playing in your mind.
I'm really sorry. Actually, I'm having a lot of cough now. So
that's not at all. Not at all. Go ahead.
So, but I hope I'm not interrupting you. So I can totally understand you, sir, because my latest novel, which is about to release in August, that is also a thriller, and and it's having almost 25-30 characters. So it was so tough for me to be in shoes of all the characters one by one, and finally the stitching part. So I also remember that I created a sort of whiteboard on my laptop, because while I was rereading that story, I was trying to keep writing all the points which need to be stitched in the last. But I don't want that any single point should be missed and reader should say, okay, this thing was not clarified. So that's the challenge which I think every author faces who writes a thriller, and such a gripping thriller. What you have written?
Yes, correct. Very important. That's correct. You know your author yourself, so you understand.
Because I always feel that thrilling story, it's called a thriller if you are able to engage your reader till the last page. And it becomes more interesting and more solid if all the thrilling points which you have kept open throughout the book are stitched at the end. Because if you have left any loopholes, then your book seems to be an incomplete, which is not in your case. That's the beauty of your book. Everything is properly stitched and closed.
Oh, okay, all right. Thank you, Himanshu. But I agree with you that yes, that is one thing we need to take care about. Any thriller writing, so there's a lot of detailing involved, and so every chapter you leave a clue, and if the reader is not careful after the third chapter, then he or she will wonder what happened. Then they sometimes go back. I had some readers who said they'd read it again to find out where they missed the clue. That I suppose, it's something that comes with each type of novel, I guess. So, yes, but that's very important.
So, in the beginning, you said that this is a sequel to your first novel, I think.
Yes.
So now, what we can expect? Can we expect that this series of Nanda, Khusru and all characters will continue in your next book, or this story is finished?
No, there'll be one more sequel. I'm already working on it. Even I like this book because, when I finished this book only that Israel has started. So I guess, I got one more war to cover. So the next one will include that also now.
So paperback is now available or still it's on Kindle only?
It is available. Paperback is available, but I think it should be available on Amazon. I'm not really sure.
Okay, maybe because when I purchased at that time, it was not available. So I think it was out of stock at that time. So, coming back to more on the warfront stories, Kargil War is something which has always fascinated me, and it's just a sort of mystery which always comes to my mind. The mystery, what comes to my mind is, although it's not a mystery, but still, I want to understand from you. Like, first of all, we should say that whatever Musharraf planned was a brilliant plan. As you said, that every a defense or intelligence try to plan something out of their mind, and we need to say that the plan what they did was an out of mind. And it would have gone wrong if our defense forces would have not acted to the level what is expected and what they have done. So, first of all, what's your view on the plan what Musharraf has done for that Kargil war?
So, actually, that normally in any warfare, people talk about, I'll go back to Mahabharata. Very often it's for the benefit of the readers, it'll be much easier to correlate. To say that, subterfuge, deception and surprise. These are key elements in any kind of warfare. That means achieving an element of surprise whichever way you go about doing it. So to get an element of surprise, there has to be a certain amount of deception. Then only you can get that surprise that you want. So each time, for example, let's say that we talk about the war which is going on in Palestine. 2000 years back, Alexander invaded that place and he achieved success by tunneling. So, because that place is conducive to tunneling and they did the tunneling, that was a success which they did not think about. So, he achieved that element of surprise, and that is what won the war for them. That, the other side did not anticipate that or were not prepared for it. Now, similarly, for example, to come to India, Shivaji's famous places near Pune, there is a place called Singhgad. It's a very famous fort.
Singhgad, yeah.
So now, if you study that fort, it's on top of a hill, and on one side of it's a very steep climb, very steep vertical climb.
Yes.
Which is not accessible even today. If you want to climb it, you cannot climb it. There is no way to climb it.
Yeah.
So that was taken for granted that that you cannot have an enemy attacking from that side. And exactly because they knew that this would be an area where they could get in, that Shivaji's forces, Tanaji and gang, they used that gorpad and to tied rope on the gorpads and climbed up from there to break through the defenses to open the gate of the fort. And they succeeded. So something which was not expected to be done, which they did. So in every war, that element of surprise and whatever method you head towards it is what will many of the times gives you success. Now, when you come to nations, when it comes to nations, with large nations like India, and when it's like, it's called poking a bear, then you have to be careful how the bear is going to respond. So there is in defense, people say there is something called a tactical brilliance and there's something called a strategic brilliance. So tactical brilliance is locally in that area, you have been brilliant, you did something which has succeeded. But if that is a strategic mistake, that has caused that so much of action from the other side that your tactical brilliance is of no use. So in the case of Kargil, that is what happened. Yes, definitely they achieved tactical surprise. They were able to buy all that mountaineering, extra cold climate clothing, organize people, and climb up and occupy those positions without being detected. But having reached there, when the Indian response came and it went towards a war, then it became that their option was either you respond. If you respond on a strategic level, it becomes a full-fledged war. Then the tactical brilliance has got no meaning. So then they decided that that poor soldiers, they left those fellows behind. And one of those guys I mentioned in my book also, the famous guy, Captain Sher Shah, one of the guys there. So he actually fought with those troops and died there, and then Pakistan, they disowned him. And the Indian army wrote a commendation for him based on which he was given the highest gallantry award for him in Pakistan, the actual case. Because one young captain was, he knew that he was losing because towards the end of the war, there were a handful of people and we are, throwing in brigades out to that place, and you are bombarding with laser bomb from the top. So they knew that they were all going to die. But he led the people, and our people were so impressed with that captain who was leading the people, and their brigade decided that we must, bravery, whether it's yours or from the other side, it is recognized. So that's also mentioned. That's part of if you find it's one of that been incorporated in this novel, to know that how that has been abused for some other purpose. Now those kind of things also get abused. So to that part, yes, that that's what I said. No, when you say, let's say, achieving tactical brilliance in a 3,000 kilometer border at one point, which may be 3-4 kilometers, is okay provided it remains local. You're able to keep it local. So that's where the discerning comes. For example, let's say in the Indian army with Pakistan and China and all, there's so many times where the army border posts will go and attack and take one small post which is occupied by them in that area, and you occupy that for some time. So they will make a protest, but that says that's a local action. saying that they were defending there's somebody was on a hilltop and these people attacked and occupied their position so that you have a better superiority there. But if that leads to a nation coming to war, then that is not tactical brilliance anymore. That becomes stupidity. So that's what happened there. They tried, but then it didn't work.
So one thing comes to my mind whenever I listen something about war, especially about war. Like, see, for example, if I am a soldier, obviously I am fighting for my country, and I know that the guy who is sitting or firing at me from front is also someone who is fighting for his country. And being a soldier, I also respect that soldier. Okay, and personally, I don't know him. Personally, I do not envy him. But from a countryside, I need to fight and I need to kill that person. I need to kill that person. Maybe that person is like you're talking about Sesha, 22, 23 years, young chap. We know that we have to kill him because we want to save our country. So what is the mindset of a soldier at that time?
I know that maybe again I'll go back to Mahabharata. Very often I'll tell you this because see
Obviously Mahabharata teaches us.
I know because I'll tell you that the reason is, for example, see warfare. They say like the famous whatever the trick that Yudhishthir uses, Ashwatthama Hado. And then, whisper by the side, Narava Kunjaro. So now, if you see what is that? It's like, it's a tactics he has used, after which Ajay has lays down his arms and then he is killed by Arjun. Because he thinks Ashwatthama is dead. And there is a reverse story of Ashwatthama going and killing all the let's say the Pandava children, Pandava's children in the camp as revenge. And then there is a showdown between them and the two Brahmastra are supposed to meet each other and there's calamity in the universe and the gods interfere and they stop it. So why I say this is that even in Mahabharata towards the end there's a story when they say that Pandavas go to heaven. They find Yudhishthira sitting, Duryodhan sitting there. Then they ask him, how can Duryodhan be here? So Lord Krishna says, that, he is again a soldier who has fought bravely in the field. So irrespective of what he does, a brave soldier goes to heaven. So now, bravery has always been recognized and respected. So, and in the respect, if you see in our lineages, very many times given by those names which are taken. From Mahabharata, you'll always find Arjun and Karna are very popular names. You will never find a guy with a Duryodhan's name or a Dushasan's name.
Yes.
So similarly, when you're fighting a war, it is not really about, you're not on eye contact or face to face with that person. But yes, there are some laid down guidelines, and normally many places that, people do maintain friendly relations. So have an understanding that don't trouble each other so that, if there's no dispute, let it stay that way. But it is like that. See, and just remember this, that, one of the things that what a lot of people don't understand is, in the armed forces, you're governed by what is called the Army Act, Navy Act and the Air Force Act. And which makes them different from the rest of the world, that your fundamental rights are abrogated. And there is a provision in that which says that if you show cowardice in the face of enemy, you can be lined up and shot dead, court-martialed and shot dead. There's a provision. So normally they say that your soldier is more afraid of your own general than the enemy's general. So that aspect is, that's why I said that war comes once in 20 years, sometimes once in one's lifetime, maybe once in twice lifetime, and you face it as it happens, and you're prepared for it. It's and actually in combat when it becomes, it's like playing a cricket match. Both sides will be fighting and it will be a fierce battle. The only difference is here it will be legs and limbs and not runs.
True, sir. So coming back to your book. So every book when you write as a writer, there is some sort of, I'll say, a pinch of salt which comes to our mind, which gives us the taste of building that story. My next story is about teenagers who play some mobile game, and that game enters into a thrilling story. So something came into our mind, and then that story built up. Your story, because there's so much in this story. There is a lot of things happening into it. What one thing that strike your mind that you should write this story?
So, for example, like I know,
How does
I will
happen?
tell you about, in this book, I talked about subterfuge and deception and all that. So let's say that, that you mentioned that, it's 89 when the Russians moved out, Taliban moved in, Pakistan thought they had won, it's a big victory for them. The victory in the sense they got, if you understand the military, the Pakistan military always has got one challenge called defense in depth. In the sense that countries,
What is that?
from north to south, it's got length, but it doesn't have width. So they're always scared that in the army, it's always that what people say is that when you fight battles, you should have space to fall back and fight. That's called defense in depth. So in their case, they think that if India breaches, because it's a whole Punjab is a plain, you'll just run through. And where do they fall back to fight? So that if you talk to so many people, it's their military's perennial nightmare, and Afghanistan is one of the solutions. Afghanistan is one of the solutions to say that, okay, then we have got defense in depth. If Afghanistan is with us, we can fall back and, fight back from Afghanistan. So they were very thrilled when they got Afghanistan, and, that Taliban, they thought was their prodigies. Taliban went in there. Then things went wrong and Taliban went out of hand, and America came in and they attacked said, Taliban should be taken to task. So then they had a challenge because their soldiers were supporting Taliban to that point. They were not very keen on, going and shooting Taliban. So they had to create a diversion. So how do you take Americans out of their, to take the eyes of the battlefield, as they called? So that's why they say, they created a ruse called weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. So how do you do that? So let's say that Americans have said, all right, now we have all the Taliban people, give us and then they list of Taliban supporters. So what ISI does is that they say sometimes you have to sacrifice some people to keep your institution running. So they call a guy and, into a meeting where someone is telling him that, we are going to get support from Iraq. They're planning to make weapons of mass destruction. It's just a mention in a meeting. And after that, this person is arrested and handed over to the Americans. Americans take him to that, there's a famous bay where they went and where there's all the people who are kept and tortured. And in torturing, he says that, yes, I do not know, but I've heard that, Iraq has got weapons of mass destruction. This becomes what you say an intelligence input to the intelligence agencies. They go back and say that it does not finish with Afghanistan. Maybe Iraq is involved. And the person who he tells the story in that meeting happens to meet with an accident somewhere on a later date. He's not there to corroborate the story. A similar story is repeated, not in Pakistan, another place. Somebody was caught from Palestine or some other place and handed over to the Americans. He also has heard weapons of mass destruction. And during torture, it comes out. So when the American intelligence gets a report from one Taliban guy saying that, okay, he has heard about weapons of mass destruction. One. He has heard about a second guy. It becomes corroboration. And one more guy, if the report comes, it becomes confirmation. So this whole thing, if let's say if I were to be sitting in ISI, this is how I'll engineer it. So it of course called for a lot of networking. You have to sacrifice 2-3 lives and sacrifice 2-3 people, hand over them to Americans. In the net result, what has happened is America went and invaded Iraq. There were no weapons of mass destruction. They killed 1 million people and destroyed lives of displaced maybe tens of millions of people. But in the bargain, they took their eyes off Afghanistan. And that is what we wanted.
Yes.
So they were able to create rearm Taliban and re-strategize bring in suicide bombers to fight and find a way of fighting and winning. So to tell this story, so this part of the story, when you talk about jihadis, it is not just jihadis. There is always a military mind behind all this. It is not just jihadis can't do so much. It is a military mind and military establishment, military logistics. So much of support goes into all this. So this aspect that that Americans were taken for a ride. They're taken for a ride,
Sir, one thing. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Don't you feel laughing when you see movies like Pathan, Jawan, Ek Tha Tiger?
I know.
Sorry to interrupt again. It's suddenly a different question, because the way you are explaining me, such so minute details and how things happen. I just went into thought of thinking that what they actually show in those movies. I was smiling when you were telling me this. What's your view on that?
First of all, I have not seen any of those movies. I don't think I'll be able to digest it either.
Definitely see it. Then you will also laugh. Like
I know that. Because see, a lot of the time, see, that's what I said, no? It's like this. Again, I repeat, battles are fought and won in the minds of people. So it is always, whether it is, if you are going as an intelligence agent or if you are going as a soldier, anywhere, it's always, you have to win that battle in your mind. So there has to be a phenomenal application of brain. Nothing happens just like that.
So, but I will definitely like to tell you, you must watch. I'm not sure if you have watched or not. There's a web show called Ops. Neeraj Pandey ka show hai. K.K. Menon is there. I think it's on Hotstar. Ops. I think already 3 seasons are out. You must definitely watch that web series. And the way you are explaining, the way your book talks about the minute details. That book is also about agents and how those agents are trying to solve one case. But that series is very minutely drilled down on the level what you are explaining and you have done. A very, very detailed way.
Yeah, that's how it works. See, because it doesn't matter whether it's a police investigation or it's a solving of a criminal case. Anything. Sometimes, of course, you do get caught by surprise, because I remember there was a famous case sometime back in 2013 or 12. There was a case of a girl who was accused of killing her parents and her 2 brothers and sisters-in-law and a small child, all because she was not allowed to marry a boy of her choice. She was a double postgraduate and this boy was not even one local loser, so to say. So when the story came out in the media, I thought, that this has been done by somebody and she's just being framed. That's the first thing that comes to your mind. Now so subsequently, as the thing went along, then it came out clear that this girl was involved. That for whatever, she was willing to do anything for love, killing her parents and 2 brothers and sisters-in-law and things like that. She's awaiting death row in the first woman to be hung in case she finally gets hung. I think there's some presidential pardon going on. She's still not been hung. So when you read that story, I tried actually at that point in trying to see what could be the other possibilities. Sometimes you're not willing to accept what has been put in front of you. And straightforward, but you think that's too straightforward to believe.
True.
So a lot of the times, any of these things that thinking it through and putting it intelligently takes a lot of effort, and our media is always not very sure about the levels of the audience and how much they understand nuanced approach. They always like to see that the larger than life carries a life stuck, larger than life versions of things, and wherein maybe that's more glamorous to say, but okay.
True, sir. So the one last question. Why readers should read your book? Although I can add a number of lines to it, but I would like you to tell what are the reasons that readers should pick this book and they should read it.
So I will ask you I'll tell you a subterfuge. For example, I'll tell you this. No, I told you about what let's say this ISI would have done. That's what I've said in the novel. Let's say now there is an Ukraine war going on. Now the Ukraine war started off to the immediate cause of the Ukraine war was the blowing up of that Nord Stream pipeline. So the same question comes, if someone was to knock off that pipeline, how would you do it? So and the novel touches on that, to say that, let's say, for example, now I'm not saying that X has done it or Y has done it. It's a fiction story, whatever is said is fictional. But let's say, for argument, I am sitting in CIA, and I've decided that, I don't like Russians supplying oil and gas to Europeans, because if they get together, they become too strong. I want to break up the partnership. So I told Germany, boss, don't give partner with Russians, we don't like you. Germany says, no, oil and gas has come cheap from Russia. Why should we go somewhere else? So they go ahead and build the pipeline. So then I catch hold of, go to Ukraine, create a chaos, turn the government, and find one sympathizer who is willing to align with me. And I give him arms and ammunition to say that, okay, we'll tell you what to do. You wait your chance. We'll teach Russia a lesson. So things are going, and you're still finding that the project is about to commission, and then things are not happening the way you want. You have to precipitate a crisis. So all right. So I tell the British people, okay, I need this pipeline blown up. So you make a plan. So let's say I make a plan to say that, all right, the NATO navies will be exercising in that area. One day the British divers will go and put some explosives, but the explosives have to be sourced from Russian origin countries. So that it doesn't come back to any of the Western nations. So I have sourced explosives. I have gone and put explosives. Now I call the Ukrainians and tell them that you should blow up that pipeline. You should put your explosives in this place, and we will tell you when to blow it up. So I call an Ukrainian team, call them to Germany, give them a boat. They take the explosives and go to one particular spot. They also put the explosives. And then told, you vanish from here. At the third level, I bring in, let's say, Chechens who have got a grudge against Russia. And tell them, you also, give them explosives. They're hired, given a mission. They also take a boat. They also go to the areas. Then they're told that, okay, this time not, we'll give you another chance. So there's a third level of deception. So now what I do is I leave a deliberate clue, and once I blow up, the pipeline is blown up, I leave a deliberate clue to say the Chechens were seen around this area. So an investigation takes place, and they catch the Chechens, and then 2-3 months go in Chechens. Then the Chechens say, yes, maybe we are involved, but we have not done the job. Then they start looking around, and then they say, okay, there was a Ukrainian team which is gone, was supposedly in the area. Intelligence has shown that there's an Ukrainian team, but they have vanished. We do not know where they are. And there were many NATO ships moving around. Any of them could have done it. So now the whole question is that whilst I may be sitting in Russia's position, I know that for certain it must have been done by CIA through some of these people, but I cannot trace it back to them. This kind of deception is very, very important, because if it comes back to you, you're finished. So then in all these aspects, so that question is, when people look at, you only see that, the Nord Stream was blown up, but that blowing up of Nord Stream would have had a decade of history behind it. On working on, various, options and counter options. Why would the Europeans work with the Russians, invest $14 or $15 billion to blow it up? So very often it is not to save democracy. It's got nothing to do with democracy. So anyone who has challenged...
A lot more things are happening at the back end, which normal people see, that's not the correct picture.
So that one of the aim in this book has been to bring out a lot of the background games, what is not said, what people say, the Mahabharata behind what goes on.
Third part should be about the story what you narrated to me, the Ukraine and all these things. This should become a third part. It should actually it can become a book, complete book of strategy.
So this is a part of it I mentioned in this. So let me see that I am writing a sequel.
I'm trying to elaborate it. It can become a complete story. It can become a complete fictional story of agents going here and there, CIA, everything involved into it.
I suppose yes. That is true. But then this novel is written with an idea. So anyone who reads, who has gotten a bend of mind to a discerning mind will find it interesting.
Very interesting, sir. So, before we close, I would request all my viewers who are here with us watching this show that the link for this book is in the description. Please go and buy this book. I bet you will not keep this book back. It's such an interesting the in this 1.5 hour what we have talked about. It just say 1%, or I'll not say even a 1% of that book, because we are talking everything around the book, but we are not talking exactly about the book. But book is having lot more things into it. It's very exciting, and it will keep you engaging. It has that quality of engagement. You will be engaged into your complete story. You will love those characters. You will start feeling those characters, and you will love the way all those spy agents and how things happens at the back end. Those informations will be very informative, and you will love this. So go with my words. Please go and buy this book. It's amazing. So thanks a lot for being on this show of Books and Theories podcast. Because it's almost 1.5 hour, or either I would have loved to talk with you more and more, because it's such an interesting topic which I personally love a lot. So maybe someday again we will come on a different show. We will talk with your next book. What's coming in that, we can talk about that. And thanks again, sir, for being on this show of Books and Theories podcast.
Thank you so much, Himanshu. Thank you.